Hello, and welcome to the Grounded Reason podcast. Today, Joel and I are going to discuss cable boxes. We're going to talk about why cable companies want to get these things in your house and how much money they are making off of them, which really in turn means how much everyone is paying cable companies to have these things in their house. We'll also get into how cable companies prop up quote-unquote academics to defend these practices. I'll also break down for you how much one of those cable companies' skinny bundles actually cost once all the fees and taxes and everything else are factored in. And guess what? They tend not to be such a great deal. But before we get started, I just wanted to let you know, if you haven't heard already, that we do have a way for you to contact the show and actually be heard on air. All you have to do is leave a voicemail at our number, which is 650-TALK, T-A-L-K, GRP. That's 650-TALK, GRP. GRP, like Grounded Reason Podcast. If you call that number and leave a voicemail with a question or comment, we will read it on air and answer it. And please leave your name if you want to be mentioned on air. Of course, you can always email us at podcast@groundedreason.com. You can tweet us at Grounded Reason, or you can leave a comment or message on our Facebook page. Any one of those will get to us, and we will answer those questions on air. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please hit the subscribe button. Not only do you get the Monday show, but you'll also get news updates as they are done periodically throughout the week. Subscribing is free for you, and it's a way to keep up with all the topics and information on the show. Subscribing is also the one thing that you can do to help support us, because once you subscribe in iTunes, then those numbers are how they gauge how podcasts rank. So the more people that subscribe, the higher we rank, the more visibility the show gets, and the bigger the Grounded Reason community gets, which is good because that means we'll keep making episodes. But on to cable boxes and corporate treachery. Hit the button. Today, I wanted to talk about cable TV, or pay TV rather, and their strategy to kind of get a cable box in your house, no matter what. It's like that's what they want you to have. If you call right now and tell them I want to cut the cord and just want internet, they're immediately throwing like 2 or 3 options to sneak a cable box into your house.
Yeah, and I believe you're going to get into the numbers in a few minutes, but it's because it's a revenue source.
Well, that's one thing. It's definitely a revenue source, and we'll definitely get to that. Another thing is, like, it's also important to their shareholders because the metric in the industry that they use for video subscribers is that box.
Yeah.
So you could get, like, just network on a box, and that you count as a video subscriber, and that satisfies the shareholders, and that counts as subscribing to cable TV, whether or not you actually get any cable channels. So
it's crazy when
I
you
know.
think about it.
So yeah, if you just get, like, if they give you a box and you can just get NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, that's it. You're a cable subscriber, according to the industry.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, like, all of that stuff is basically a proxy for what Nielsen used to do, but it's a really strange way of counting that.
Yeah, I mean, it really, it makes no sense at all, because when I think of a cable subscriber, it's somebody that's like, you know, they can watch AMC or they can watch USA
HBO or whatever.
which you can do as a cord cutter. But I mean, like, you know, you got it from a box sitting on top of your TV. A box, by the way, that looks like, you know, a Casio watch from the mid-'80s, you know, with that glowing red thing. That, like, you figure out of all the things, and I might have talked about this before because it is a pet peeve of mine, with all the technological advances in video and flat panel TVs, and you figure they could do something with the cable box.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't changed that. I mean, even just refreshing the interface would do a lot, probably with retention.
It looks like the Whopper from War Games. Like, it's crazy. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say that, like, the fact that they haven't revised it isn't kind of a fun little factoid in my brain. Like, it's been the same.
It really has.
Since I was a child.
Exactly. Like, I remember when I was a kid, it was black. It was a black box they gave me, but it was still had, it's a black square box.
Digital clock.
Biggest thing near the television, and you had those, that digital panel there with those glowing red numbers. You could see it from my bedroom. I did, like, that little red light kind of coming underneath the door.
I don't think it's changed very much at all.
No. And it's kind of almost kind of like a subtle commentary on the entire industry.
It really is. It's very meta, right? Like, and but that being said, like, it sure is ugly, right? Like, yeah, I mean, like, for a inefficient way of absorbing entertainment, it really is ugly.
Oh, I know. You figure they'd at least pretty it up a bit. Maybe that's next. Maybe you'll just get beautiful cable boxes. Who knows?
Hey, step one, right?
So, as you were saying earlier, though, cost.
Oh, yeah. This is nuts.
Well, a survey went out from, two congressmen. They basically went and they sent a survey out to all the big cable TV, pay TV, satellite providers, and said, send us your average price and average usage for cable boxes, and like what are you making on these things? So it comes back that the average pay TV subscriber has 2.6 cable boxes in their house at $7.43 a pop for $231.82 a year.
Oof.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. For something you're renting that's hideous. It's kind of insane, and it's kind of, we're used to it, and it's part and parcel of being a pay TV subscriber, so no one has really questioned it until recently.
Right.
And I mentioned this stat, and someone throws, there's another rebuttal study.
Oh, this guy.
In air quotes. Basically went and wrote an article saying that the numbers that they got from the survey are complete bunk. And, well, I'll link it in the show notes and you can read it. But he basically came up with a number that was like, 40% lower, and saying that cable boxes aren't as expensive. And the funny part is you can tell he's a complete shill, because he said the number for an extra Comcast box was $2.43. Now, I've had Comcast.
Right.
I know you're paying bare minimum $10 for that extra box every month. I'm wondering where he got that number. I went and I looked, and it's for the broadcast only box.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I can't get I don't have Comcast anymore.
Right.
But back in the day, I'm pretty confident when I would call their, like, helpline, they would charge me $2.43 or whatever it was. Like, it was crazy. I got charged when I canceled my subscription.
Oh, well, yeah, if you didn't fill out your, like, 12-year, 24-year agreement,
yeah,
they definitely charge you.
I kept most of my bone marrow and my firstborn.
Yeah, you still have all your kids.
So I had to pay them some money.
Yeah, you always want to count your kids after you cancel.
You just don't
just to make
know.
Sure.
You just
you
don't
have no
know.
idea what's going to happen. So I went and I look. I read this guy's study, and I mean, I know I can sit there and criticize that one point because he's blatantly wrong. And the dude's a PhD, and he's like chief economist for something called the Phoenix Center for Advanced Legal and Economic Public Policy Studies, which is a nonprofit.
Sounds very, very, very
legit.
Yeah, I would say, learned, etc.
Okay, so I mean, I looked at that and I'm like, well, if the guy is like a chief economist, like he's an academic and he works for this nonprofit, usually, I mean, and if you're reading something and you hear nonprofit, your brain automatically thinks nonpartisan. You know, it just kind of happens. You know, it's like non-biased. Well, this is biased as hell.
Yeah.
Because I went and I actually looked at Phoenix Center, and they do a fantastic job of hiding their funding. Because you really can't figure, if you look them up, it's really hard to find anything. Luckily, though, in 2006, and somebody documented this out, and I'll put this in the show notes. In 2006, in a telephone interview, Lawrence Spiewak, who is the president of the Phoenix Center, acknowledged receiving funding from AT&T and Verizon Telecom. And that was in Television Week. Cable Group Telecom's paying for support was the article, but that's from like February issue. It's from a February issue in 2006. In another time in 2006, because I guess this might have been when they were first starting and they weren't as good as covering up the dirt.
It's when what's his name came off his meds.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but he also said that the Phoenix Center is funded by the old AT&T, hence Ma Bell,
right.
You know, and wireless and new AT&T wireless company, software providers, and other Bell competitors, and that's from Technology Daily, also in 2006. So he might have just been having, you know, a rough year, and just let it slip twice.
Like I said,
right?
It happens to the best.
Yeah, and I'll link those sources, you know, in the show notes. So, okay, Ford is the guy who wrote the piece. You know, his name, George S. Ford. He also recently wrote a hit piece against the Chattanooga gig, which we recently talked about in our municipal internet.
Yeah, and honestly, like, very few people have anything particularly negative to say about this.
No, you got to look hard. I mean, because they didn't really have a really good service there. The gig moved in, and then all of the, you know, the ISP lowered their rates. Yeah. They've had an economic boom. Now, whether or not that's because of the gig, you'd have to look into it.
It's harder to tell, but
it's quite a coincidence.
In general, like, internet service got a lot better in that area.
Right, and at the same time, so did, you know, economic situations.
Yeah.
Which, my point of view, that's a logical, you know, cause and effect.
Yeah.
But, okay. So, he recently wrote this hit piece, and come to find out, the piece itself was funded by, quote, the State Government Leadership Foundation. That is also a nonprofit. But if you look into who funds the State Government Leadership Foundation, you'll find out that it's a number of major corps, namely Time Warner.
Yeah. And so I had this buddy who used to use this. It was very Midwestern, like, you know, folksy wisdom expression that I love. It's, you know, where you sit is where you stand.
Right.
And it's exactly this, man. Like, this guy's pocketbook is getting, or that institution's pocketbook is getting lined by these guys. So guess what? They tend to be in their favor.
And this the nonprofit specifically funded this hit piece.
Yeah.
From, you know, against the Chattanooga gig. They're funded by, you know, cable companies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of.
No, it's not kinda.
Kind of a smoking gun there.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, that's not kinda shady. That's shady.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically, it looks, I mean, based off this one instance, it appears that they're using nonprofits to fund another nonprofit. You know, kind of like how you would do money laundering.
Yeah.
Like if you were in, say, like the mob or some other nefarious
something
business.
else bad.
Right. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the thing with, you know, this Phoenix Center is they've been, their studies are used in FCC hearings I've seen.
Right.
You can Google it. They're all over the place. They've been used, they've written briefs in court. I mean.
Which I think is the scarier part of it, because, like, everyone, including all of us, should consider the source, right? Like, whenever we're talking about any of these things, like, it's just important. I mean, this is, you know, basic logic, right? Like, try and understand the incentives of the people that are saying whatever they're saying.
Right. And I wanted to address this just because when I've mentioned the cable box pricing report that was out.
Sure.
I'll always hear, this will always get tossed out. It'll get, they'll throw it out there. Well, did you read this article? And I was like, yes, I read that article, and it's complete bunk.
Yeah.
Because it is. I mean, you can just you can pick those numbers apart for yourself. If you're, if you have a cable subscriber or know someone does, look at their bill, see what they're paying for an extra box. Guarantee you the guy took the lowest price he could find for each company and averaged it.
How about this? Take the price cited in that study. And if you have Comcast, call them and say, hey, I've heard this is what I, roundabout should be paying. I'm paying $10.
Right. And
I want to pay somewhere near $240.
Yeah, right. Well, the Phoenix Center of blah, blah, blah
says I should be paying someone.
And he's really smart because he has a PhD.
How about we split the difference? You make it $6 or whatever,
right?
And see how interested they are in your comments.
I know. How about this? How about you give me $243 and you send the difference, a bill for the difference, to Mr. George S. Ford.
Yeah. Let's see what they think.
And see what Mr. Ford says about that. Everyone should do that, actually. Maybe.
Please. So I guess
I'll put the, you can Google
the address of the
Phoenix Center. Just, send them
Feel
the bill.
free. Let's. No, I think the thing that irks me about this, right, like, it goes back to what we were talking about in a previous episode, or it was actually the municipal internet episode, where it was, just the monopoly power and all of this. Like, because I get it. You have a service, you have some equipment with that service, you're going to charge for it.
Right.
Whatever. But
they're making quite a killing on this thing. And I'll get to that in a second, because they do kind of rope you in on it too.
Oh, it's real bad.
Because it's not in the pricing that you see quoted online.
No, it's not. It's all tacked on.
Yeah.
It's like the airlines. But where I was going is that, like, what's really bad to me is that there's no alternatives, right? And with no alternatives, like, I gotta shove this thing on top of my, TV set that I hate, right? Like this big ugly box.
Yeah, no one's sitting there saying, hey, look at my beautiful cable box.
That's not happening.
No.
And then, it's costing me $10 or $5 or whatever the price, but it's costing me money. Mm-hmm. And, all it's really doing is changing the channel from one place to another, right? Like, and that does not seem like it should. And Dennis is about to get into the real numbers, but if I remember correctly, I want to say it was like, $5 or so out of, let's say, $85, right? Which puts it in the 8-9% range.
Well, if that was, I'll get into the numbers in a sec, but if that's the case, that was really good,
right?
Honestly, but okay.
So it's grimmer than that.
Yeah. So, well, the average is $7 and
some odd cents.
Yeah, according to that study, it's $7.43 is the average it costs for a cable box. Now that includes like your high ends, but then it also includes like the low end, the ones that Mr. Ford quoted. Right. So, but and to top it off, I looked into George S. Ford to see what he was doing before.
Oh yeah,
he worked for the Phoenix Center. Take a guess.
I'm gonna. He was a philanthropist.
Well,
he was
juggler. No, none of that. He before he worked there, he was an economist in strategy and policy and planning. First for MCI,
right,
telecom company, and then ZTEL, another telecom company. So,
hey, both of those are right down the road. MCI was in Virginia.
Yep. Where's his bread buttered?
Yeah, well, and the fact that this gentleman's, probably 50 miles from here.
Oh, no, the Phoenix Center is based in D.C. So
I was going to say,
it's right down the road for us.
Right down the road.
Literally, right down the road.
Go down there and pick it. That's what we'll do.
So, I just wanted to bring that up, just in case somebody thought about quoting, Mr. Ford's research when I brought
Well,
those
I
numbers
think
up.
it's also useful because, like, it does give you, again, one of the things we talked about.
The shadiness.
Well, yeah, and yeah, exactly. One of the things we talked about in the municipal internet episode was like, talking to your congressman and so on. And it's like one of the things that you have to worry about with that is who's in the other ear, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
you don't need to even worry about, it's like you think you just have to worry about like the legal money that's being pushed into campaigns. But no. You need to worry about this stuff too, where
and this is supposedly like I mean at least the way it's presented is non-biased, intellectual insight into the topic.
I had to dig to find anything on like where their funding.
Yeah,
they
kudos
do a
on that,
great
by the
job of hiding like where their money comes from.
Right.
So and I wouldn't have, if I read it and I was like, okay, this makes sense, I wouldn't have done any digging. But the fact that they were using that, like the cheapest cable, like box prices they could find, kind of raised my eyebrow. And I was like, I need to really look into this. And that's kind of why I went after it. And, lo and behold.
Surprise, surprise.
Right. So, I mean, and it gets kind of back the cable box. And we were saying this earlier, how it's kind of like they want you to take it. They need you to take it.
So,
because it's a trap. I mean, like,
it is.
To quote Admiral Akbar, total trap. And because I have a lot of friends that, because they always, they know I have the blog and the podcast, and they'll talk to me about cutting the cord.
Right.
And I have some friends that went to go cut the cord and with Comcast, and Comcast was like, well, hey, we'll give you, it'll cost you $40 to get the internet. But for $45, we'll give you a box. You don't need to get an antenna. It'll give you Fox. It'll give you, NBC, ABC, all the network. And here's where they get you. HBO. We'll give you HBO. And then you're like, oh, for $45 a month? Yeah. All right. I'm sold. Boom. And who wouldn't be? If you're on the phone and you're not really
Doesn't
looking
sound too bad, right?
Not at all. So I went out on the net and I went and grabbed this Internet Plus plan to see what it did. And I went through the motions of signing up for it. Well, this is the things they don't tell you. The box you get's the low end box. It's SD. So if you have on a television and you want HD, which you can get, by the way, from an antenna, and it's better HD than you can get from the cable company because they have to compress it to send it, through the pipes. Then you're going to need to upgrade your box. And their box, the box they give you is the $2 and whatever cents one, the cheaper one.
Right.
But if you want the HD, which
That's
they
gonna
do
be
ask you,
$10.
it's $10. And do you have one television? Right. No, you probably have. Well, the average person has 2.6 televisions. So let's just say 2, just to be fair. So right now it's $20 a month. Oh, there's a broadcast fee that we have to pay. That's $5 a month.
Right.
Internet modem? Oh, $10 a month. So, you add it all up. And it's, by the way, it's a 2-year contract.
And that's what bothers me the most.
Guess what happens in month 13? Your $45 a month fee? Oh, it's $20 more. You just went up to $65 a month. Basic. That's before you add on all those, box prices and fees. So if you take all that, and meanwhile, this is for just HBO and your networks. If you take all that and you average it over 24 months, you're spending $95 a month with taxes, with sale. I put a 6% sales tax in there, which is roughly,
it's about what we pay.
That's what we pay here, and it's and on the East Coast, I mean that's fairly low if you compare it to like New York and New Jersey.
Like any northern states would be higher in all likelihood, and southern tend to be lower.
But I think Maryland's actually fairly decent when it comes to
Maryland's right about in the middle.
Yeah. So I looked at, you're going to spend about $95 a month. But wait, you might say, oh, well, you know what? I know what I'll do. I'll get this deal. And then I'll just cut HBO out.
Right.
But guess what? There's fine print there that says that if you alter the service for any lower package or cancel any piece of the package, it's going to go up another $10. So you could get rid of HBO
and owe more.
And you're going to be owing $110 a month.
which
for basic broadcast television.
makes about as much sense as you think it does.
And
which is not much.
And you could up it to, because they have because they'll give you this basic box. They also have a box called the X1 box, which is the new thing that they're pushing out, and you can go up and get that deal with the X1 box. But the same math applies to that. And the deal, I mean, what we just went through right here, it's advertised at $45. By the time it's all said and done, you're paying double.
Yeah, and let's be clear, like
if you go with the HD,
well, yeah,
there's that. But even if you don't, your $95 still becomes about $80 because you have to still factor in the cost of those.
I guess what I was gonna say is that, like, we're ranking on Comcast pretty hard.
Well, that's because it's the example I have.
Yeah. Well, and they deserve it.
They do.
But, like, very similar things apply to,
any of these
Verizon
quote
or
unquote
Cox
skinny
or
bundles,
whoever. Yeah. They're all similar in how they charge. They're not exactly the same, right? Like, some a little higher, some a little
but they
lower.
all roll these fees are never in the advertised price.
Well, frankly, it reminds me a lot of the airlines, and you get like a market justification that, like, hey, if people don't want it, they don't pay that fee.
Yeah, and that's because they kind of have you. Because, I mean, while the airlines aren't a strict monopoly, there are definitely routes.
It's an oligopoly.
It is. And there's a few companies, and sometimes you're only going to get one or two airlines flying to a certain airport from where you are.
So I have to, for work, go to Long Island, and from BWI, Baltimore, Washington International, to Long Island, I believe it's only Southwest.
Yeah, so...
I mean, it's a good flight, and I'm not paying for it.
I mean, you can go look across
company one,
at various industries, and when you see, like, where they're hiding, it's usually this type of deal.
Yeah.
It's like, very like an oligopoly. Like oligarchy, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically, oligopoly just means, more than one firm that has the monopolistic
singular.
period.
I took Latin.
Wow. Ooh, la-di-da. I took Latin. I didn't. I learned one Latin thing.
I'm kidding. Actually, I didn't take Latin. It was offered at my school, but I didn't. But I had friends that took it. I was Latin adjacent.
I was Latin adjacent.
All right, so I'll probably cut that. But anyway, because I lied. It was one of those things where I was drinking and I said it, and I was like, wait a minute, I didn't take Latin. I had friends that took Latin, and
You should totally leave that in with your explanation. Hey.
I should. Why not?
I was drinking.
So I was having beers. People say people do crazy shit.
People say all sorts of crazy shit.
All right, so...
Getting back to the actual cost.
Yeah, so with the actual cost, I mean, it's not really a deal at all.
No, and what's disturbing to me about it, right? Like, so let's go back to your number you had a minute ago. What was it, $90?
Yeah, roughly over 2 years. If you stretch it out and you factor in the fact that you're getting two TVs with HD, it's $95 a month for HBO and just network. So no Walking Dead, no, Real Housewives, no, whatever decade that they're running marathons about now of loving 80s. Are they loving the knots now? I mean, because when I quit cable, they were loving the 90s. So they're probably loving.
They're loving something.
Did they call it the knots? Is that what it is?
I don't
2000s?
know. 2000s.
The zeros?
I think
sound right.
It's got to be the 2000s.
Yeah, probably the 2000s. The knots doesn't sound very nice.
No, that sounds
bad
confusing.
marketing. Yeah.
But so you're talking a full, call it 11.5%. I'm doing the math in my head. Is just the cable box
for one box, yeah.
Yeah,
if you're doing on two TVs, because it's an.
Well, if you're doing two TVs, you're talking
20%,
22%.
Right,
is just having the cable box. Now that's again how they've built the fee structure. So presumably, if there was a way to get rid of the cable box or to have them absorb that in the price, it would increase the overall price, but at least it would be more transparent.
Well, see, with this survey that went out, the FCC and the White House actually, because like I think Obama mentioned this too, like when they quoted the absurdity of it, which we all knew.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure, Obama seems kind of with it. I'm sure he knows. I'm sure.
You think President Obama's not watching The Walking Dead?
Well, yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah. You think they don't have good service?
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. But when you're in the White House for 4 years, you kind of or 8 years now, you kind of get detached from how we all live down here. But no, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's kind of with what's been happening. Because 8 years ago, remember, while cable was still kind of hideous and scary, it's not nearly as bad as it is now with all this stuff. With all the
it was a
lot cheaper about 8 years ago.
It was also more the only game in town.
That's true,
right?
That's true.
Like, because you didn't have. Well, I mean, I'd have to go check Sling's site, but you didn't have as many alternatives.
I don't think you had not any legal ones. Not many. I mean, I think
not 8 years ago.
No,
maybe
8 years
5,
ago,
maybe.
Netflix was still pushing discs. I mean,
yeah, I was getting them.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think I started streaming, like really getting into it, like by the end of the 2000s.
Honestly,
like 2009, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, streaming was a niche thing up until fairly recently, like 7-8 years, because. Internet connectivity was so slow.
That's true for the most part. I mean, and you're pushing video is expensive. So, but I mean, before we get to like some of the remedies for this that the FCC is trying to push, I caught wind. Okay, they have this X1 box, Comcast, which is kind of like their high-end box that they want everyone to use. In an earnings call in the fourth quarter of 2015, they actually let it slide that 61% of new customers get the X1 box.
Right.
So that's 39% that don't. The only tier right now that doesn't have the X1 box is the deal that I just talked about.
Right.
So 40%, roughly, like 39%, of new customers signing on are getting this hokey deal.
Right.
And I can see it now. If you're going for just bare bones box, you're probably saying, just give me internet.
Right. More or less.
So this is actually kind of obscuring the cord cutting numbers a bit here.
Yeah, I would say there's this fun gray area of like straight cord cutting where they're like, I just want internet. And the rest of you leave me alone.
Right. And it's more, I mean, it's a bit of an attitude with
hedging. Yeah.
Because you have to, I mean, you do. You almost have to say, screw Comcast, screw, whoever.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say. Because they'll do, it's like the devil sitting there going, now, how about I give you some HBO? And then they're like coming up.
It's real tempting.
It is. You're like, well, really okay, tempting. HBO sounds good, devil.
I like Game of Thrones.
I do. I'll take it. And then so you wind up. But if it's usually somebody who's kind of like totally fed up with this, the BS of the cable company, and they're like, I don't care.
Completely out.
Yeah, I don't care. Boom. And then they get rid of it.
But then there's a much larger percentage that are trimming back on cable expenditures.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And that's I would say the vast majority of people that we have exposure to with, Grounded Reason. And
that's true. But those people want Walking Dead. Those people want, so they're probably not they're probably getting the X1 box, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a weird scenario, right? Where you go, how many of them are going... And
that's hidden in the numbers somewhere.
Yeah, you just don't know. How many of them are saying, 10, I'll sit a season back?
Even if it's 10... 40% is a big number to be taking the lower-end box.
It's a very big number.
And that lower-end box is only going to get you your basic network channels and some HBO. So...
That is more or less, I want internet connectivity.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I was like,
this is real close.
I think this is kind of like, the wildlings are at the wall,
Yeah.
Comcast, and it's about to come down. If 40% of your new customers are signing on to this, like, your last hope of having somebody to have an ugly cable box in their house.
Well, if we've talked about this before, I really think that, like, it's entirely possible that, like, certain companies we fast forward 5 years, certain companies in this industry will just not exist, right? Like, and big dogs. Like, I could see a world where Comcast doesn't. But I think other ones that are big dogs will evolve.
Well, that's what they need. They need to evolve.
And I don't think it will even be
I think
that
Comcast
bad a transition.
They'll still be around, I think.
Well, they have deep pockets.
Exactly. They have deep pockets, so they'll be able to, like, they'll lose a ton of money.
Yeah, they're plenty dumb, but they're very rich.
Right. So they'll be able to sit there and say, all right, well, then I guess it's only one yacht this year, CEOs.
Right. And so if you're, and this is just a general rule, if you're really rich, you can be a little dumb. Right? You can't be very dumb.
It happens.
You can be a little dumb. I wouldn't know. Well, I know about the dumb, but I don't know about the rich.
Not that everyone. I mean, and just you could be.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and you're darn dangerous if you're rich and smart.
That's a wicked comment.
Lex Luthor.
So, so the FCC.
Oh yeah,
this
is a good one.
Yeah, well, they back in February, once they got wind of what was going on. They actually were on board, I think, before the report came out. The report actually came out after the FCC was kind of it looks like this was coming from different angles. But in February they went and said, you know what, we're gonna they had a tentative vote to put policy in place to say, third-party boxes. We're going to have third-party boxes, and all the cable companies, all the pay TV companies are going to have to put their content on these third-party boxes.
Yeah, which I love the idea.
I did too. You know who didn't?
I'm going to guess... cable companies.
Right, because they were going to be forced to put content on these boxes.
Well, they were going to lose the fees.
Well, yes. But they said that it's too hard. You're going to have to put our content on these boxes. It's a lot of work. And they
honestly,
whined and they whined.
That sounds a lot like when my 6-year-old and 4-year-old have to pick up their toys.
It really was. So they said, all right, look. We have an alternative plan. Not written by the Phoenix Center, but it could have been. Might as well have been. And they put forth this plan that said, I know. We'll give linear TV and on-demand through an app. But no DVR.
Yeah, that's kind of crappy.
And that's what I was thinking, because everyone's time shifting their viewing these days.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, cable cord cutters don't have to worry about it too much because they stream a lot.
Yeah, mostly it's on demand, straight up.
And the problem with the cable TV on-demand offerings is, good luck figuring out what you're going to be able to watch on that. Because,
Yeah, I mean, like, it really is a grab bag, right?
You have no idea. Some, you can go in, you got the whole season. Others, it's last episode.
Fantastic, right? Like,
others, it's last episode. Some, it's none. Some, you're like, this isn't even on demand. So you have no idea what shows you're going to be able to watch through on demand. So that's why I like the DVR, because you can just say, I never even really watched on demand. I just DVR'd everything I wanted to watch and then went and watched it. And that was my on demand, is my DVR. And they know that,
Of course.
So this app thing with the no DVR is, I think, the hook there to say, if you want to record something, you got to buy our box.
Right.
And that was their hooking. Well, FCC said, you know what, cable companies, we weren't being fair. We really like this app idea. And you know what? You guys need to do DVR functionality in that app. And to top it off, all major market companies have 2 years to comply. That's what they're pushing right now.
And that is fantastic.
Awesome. So everyone on pay TV has lost their freaking mind. They are going crazy right now, because not only are they going to this app thing that they suggested, but they have no hook into the box with this policy that's going into place.
I mean, you have to think about this. If you're Comcast, your cost structure doesn't change, right? But your revenue structure takes a 15 to 20% gut punch.
Well, that's because their revenue structure
I'm not saying
redonkulous.
I'm not saying that I support it. But I mean, like, if I'm them, I'm freaking out, right?
So, just so you know, a cable company freak out tries to look as logical as possible, regardless of the doublespeak and back and forth and, going back on what the logic you used previously.
Yeah.
That all gets thrown out.
Oh, the app idea is terrible
Right.
because you changed it.
Yes. Well, they're grabbing on to licensing controversy right now. They're saying that, we license content in different ways, and putting everything through an app completely changes how content is licensed. And I'll give you a quote. Here. Wait, here we go. This is from like the NCTA. It's like the National Cable TV Association, which just changed their name. Actually, I just heard they changed their name. They got rid of the cable because they like to do this because cable's a bad word now. And now they're like the Internet and Television Association or something like that. Yes. It's like, it's wonderful things people love.
Hugging Bunnies
Exactly.
Association.
Yes. Cake and candles and puppy dogs.
Foot
and
rubs.
Unicorns and foot rubs. Association. But no, they did. They got rid of the cable piece and they're like the Internet and Television something or other. Because people like those things. TV and Internet's great. Let's call ourselves that. So, they said, the FCC proposal is, quote, it's also unworkable as it doesn't reflect how licensing is handled in the marketplace today. Programmers today do not pool and offer uniform rights across all platforms, which we love, I'm sure. You got to sit there and do the math on what you can watch. So they segment the market license, some rights to the online video distribution and others to pay TV operators. And they make judgments about devices and device security and how to distribute their own content. The market-driven licensing process has provided enormous choice to customers. BS. Right. You know what that enormous choice is? This is what that looks like to us. Oh, I'm going to get Sling TV and watch Thursday Night Football. Oh, wait, I can't because they licensed it to Twitter today and I'm not allowed to watch it.
Right.
That's what that is. That's not choice. No one's sitting there saying, yes, I want to look through 7 different services to see where I can watch the show I want to watch. And that's really what that quote says.
Yeah.
It's complete bunk. So again, they're taking something that sucks and everyone hates and trying to spin it as like a plus.
If you polish that turd enough,
exactly
Dennis,
what they're doing.
Sooner or later, it will shine.
That's exactly what they're doing. So, I mean, it's going to be fun to see how all this plays out. Because I can guarantee you there's some lawyers in a room right now writing some suits.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, it's a fool's errand to try and guess how this particular thing will work itself out.
Oh, well, we're going to be hearing some news, I'm sure. And I'm going to be doing some updates, I'm sure.
Exactly.
So subscribe,
busy
folks,
man
out there. Really. I mean,
that's actually a really, really good point. So Dennis has been doing updates normally like once, maybe twice a week.
Yeah, depending on what's going on that week.
Depending about cord cutting and so on. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. Shameless plug.
Right, because if you do subscribe and I get on the mic, these are recorded, a bit in advance, but the news stuff is recorded same day. So if I see some news, I hop on the mic, record it, set it right up, comes right down to your phone. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, whether, iTunes. We're in Google Play now. We just joined Google Play. So you can get the podcast on Google Play. That happened yesterday, actually. Ah. So to wrap this up, cable boxes suck, and they really exist as a mechanism to kind of pick your pocket. The Internet Plus network that you can get from a cable package, as a cable package for Comcast, it's basically a bait and switch. And eventually you're going to be hurting, especially in year 2 when that $20 fee kicks in.
Yeah.
So it's much safer, in my opinion, to kind of just cut the cord. It's cheaper. And the catch is, instead of having to stick with them for 24 months, you can cancel anytime you want.
Anytime you want.
So, I mean, and the FCC is... I'm in their corner on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're trying to crack the grip.
I got a good
TV.
feeling about it.
And Wheeler used to work for, actually, Wheeler, the chairman, he used to work in lobbying for them.
Yeah. He knows what's up.
Yeah, so I was scared when I found out he was going to be... I was actually one of the naysayers when they announced Wheeler, saying, oh, this is going to be awful. You work for Cal. Dude is totally turned around.
Yeah.
And they kind of hate him now, it seems. Because he is trying to kind of like bring down... He seems to be... And I don't say this often of bureaucrats, but he seems to be on the side of the public.
Well, and honestly, I think with a lot of this, it's... He knows where the bodies are buried in the industry.
It's true.
Right? And it's he happens to be, at least by all appearances, pretty straight up fella. So he's trying to, represent the people that he was asked to represent when he came on to the commission.
Yep, that's how I feel. So I guess that brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening this week. This is Dennis Rostaro.
And this is Joel Reeves.
And now drink your milkshake. There will be blood.
There will be blood. That's great. And now Dennis is going to beat me to death with a bowling pin.
That was us being good at closing.
How was it?
And then bad at closing. See you next week, guys. Thanks for listening to the show. Remember, if you enjoy the show, to give us a review on iTunes. Remember to subscribe if you want those news updates. And if you want to contact the show, you can email us at podcast@groundedreason.com. You can tweet us at Twitter at groundedreason. Or you can now even call us at 650-TALK-GRP. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.